Welcome to Morning Coffee Review. It is July 13th, and it is a Tuesday morning. This is special to say Tuesday because tomorrow there's going to be a Wednesday one because we're going West Coast. So that's a little tidbit there. I'm Jason Hartley, joined here with Michael Achave, and we're going to talk about all things Bluebeam.
Yes,
I'll kick it over to you, Mike.
Today's back to basics part 3. So if you remember looking at some of the previews, hopefully you did check it out. We are going to be talking about back to basics part 3, primarily about studio sessions and studio projects. All things pertaining to there. Again, this is just an overall thing for us to fall back onto. So if you have any other questions that we are able to solve here live or answer live, sometimes we can't, so we kick it over to our support. Feel free to ask anyone from the live in terms of YouTube land as well. Otherwise, everyone here, just use the chat features we always have been doing. But we'll get started. Do you want to share today or do you want me to share today?
Oh, I suppose I can. Let me fire up my thing and start my share, and we'll be doing this. So we're going to talk about studio sessions. So this is one of those things that not everybody uses inside of Review, and I think it's amazing. There's no other way to put it. This functionality is really changing things. So you can see my screen, right?
Yes, I can.
All right, perfect. So here in Review, I'm in my basic profile of Review Advanced. I did wipe out all my other stuff and start from scratch. So this might look familiar to you if you're in this, but over here on the left side panel for this particular profile is a button here for Studio. And the Studio requires a login. And this is a free login. And sometimes your IT administrator might set this up for you. Otherwise, you're going to need to create your own account. But if you create your own account, don't worry, it is free. You will want to use your work email for this, and we'll go from there. You do have options. So you can sign into the US, UK, Australia, Germany, or Sweden, or you can manage your other server if you wanted to go otherwise. This is going to be, I'm going to use the studio.bluebeam.com, which is the US cloud server for Bluebeam. So I'm going to do my sign in. If you don't have an account, you're going to come over here to the top and switch to create account, and you'll fill this out. Now, remember this, your email will be your Bluebeam ID. So use your company email. Don't use your personal one because this will be displayed and everything else. You'll want to be making sure that it's tracked appropriately. And you can change your display name if you like as well. Since I already have a Bluebeam ID, I'm going to go ahead and enter in my email. And hopefully on the next screen, I'll remember my password. And I'll choose to remain signed in. And once we get logged in, we're going to see 2 components of the studio. So the first thing we're going to notice on this top bar here is my connected icon. So at any time I can work offline. If I start getting involved with a project or a session and I have to unhook my computer and go somewhere, once I get synced back up, it will reconnect. But I am connected now. And then here on the top bar, I have Studio, and then I have my 2 buttons. One is projects and one is sessions. So why would I use a project, Michael?
So Studio project would be for storage, primarily any file type. You could use it for dashboards. If you want to quickly send a shareable link to somebody, you can do that as well. So it's like a standard FTP storage site, except it's unlimited file size and any file type, so any file format. There are no limitations to attendees per the individual project, so you're allowed to invite whoever you'd like. One question everyone always asks, well, what if I invite somebody that doesn't have Studio or Bluebeam Review? Sorry, not Studio, but Bluebeam Review to get into Studio. They can always download the free trial and get access to Studio as well. They just, of course, are limited to what they can do in the Studio project specifically. They can only open up the PDFs and view them because that's what Review does. If it is another application, such as a different extension like a dot Word or a dot Excel file, right, it would open up the native application for it so they can work on it.
Correct. So we're going to use projects for our file sharing and what I like to call it is our single source of truth, right? It's always frustrating to not know or not to feel confident that you have the most recent set of plans. So we can always maintain that up on the projects. But we'll talk about that more in a future episode, especially because we might tease into Bluebeam drawings at some point too.
Yeah.
Another thing to get into. But today's all about sessions, and I'm going to jump over to the sessions icon. So this kind of looks like a chalkboard. I believe that's the technical term, right? Chalkboard.
Yeah, the old white or chalkboard that flips over.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do today, so our session is going to be where we're going to collaborate in real time. This means that we can load up a bunch of different files, we can have a bunch of different people, and we can all review PDFs at the same time. So this is handy for folks that work remotely, whether they be out of the office or in different cities. We can all collaborate just as if we were here in a conference room, like I'm sitting in right now, going over a set of plans, right? So this is really, really handy. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to start a brand new session, and we're going to walk through some of the admin part of this first before we get into here. So I'm going to come over here to the top, and I'm going to choose add, and I'm going to leave this open. So if any of you guys want to play along today, we'll be careful. But
well, hold on. Yeah, okay, there's only 19, so I guess.
Okay.
Just refrain from opening up all the PDFs, because
yeah, don't open up all the PDFs. So we'll make this easy. So I'm going to hit the plus sign to add. So I can add a new session, or I can join one. So after I create this, you're going to hit the plus sign and go to join. So I'll go new session. This is going to be morning coffee review 713. Here I can add whatever files I want at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and open up, something. No. Let's open up. What file do you like using for this one, Michael?
I like using the floor, yeah.
The floor plan?
Yeah. Because it's one sheet, or that site plan, because it's one sheet too.
Oh, we'll try this. So I'm going to upload this, and then here I have an option for my permissions. Do I want people to be able to save as or print? I don't want them to be able to do that. We don't need to do that. I just want them to be able to do these two things. Now here is where I'm going to restrict attendees or uncheck that, which means anybody with the 7-digit or 6-digit, hello, I can count, 9-digit code will be able to enter in their number and join this. And then today I'm going to have this session expire. And I'm going to have this expire today at noon. Now, that means that as we start the session and people are joining this, it's going to end. You're going to get an email telling you, hey, your session is about to end, which means you will no longer have access. Myself as the administrator will still be able to access certain files that are in there, and I can bring it back to life, right? So I can remove that expiration and keep it going. But in this case, I'm just going to hit OK. Why is it?
At the dash, yeah.
Fine. I'm using my laptop keyboard, and I feel like I haven't touched it in a very long time. It's very weird. All right, so as this loads, you can see it's uploading and it's flashing. It's starting to take a record of what's going on, and it's asking me now to invite people. So this is where I can use my address book. I can type or paste emails or create different groups. So I can create a group for my electrical contractors. I can create a group for my architects. I can create a group for my inspector team. I can create those different groups and have them in my address book to make this process much easier. Instead, I'm going to hit cancel. And here we go. So for you guys in YouTube land or on the Zoom, you can go to join and you can type in this 9-digit code. Now, we are live streaming this. I do have your names. Let's all behave here. But I can kick people out at any time. And maybe I'll have Brian pop in here and I'll kick him out just for fun.
Yeah, and how people are joining in now, let's talk about limitations. So there are limitations to how many people can join the session. There are 500 only allowed. There's also how many files can be uploaded. There's only 5,000 per session, not in overall sessions per the singular session that you've created. And then 1 gigabyte each for the file. So the file can only be 1 gigabyte in total size. And how big can the markups be specific to the actual PDF? It's only 1 meg. 10 megabytes. So just be aware of that.
But
And
these are
then,
pretty big limitations.
yeah, pretty big numbers. So just like everyone to be aware of what is allowed to be in there. Also 2D and 3D PDFs.
That's right. There are some other limitations. Now, as Michael mentioned earlier before, you don't have to have the full version of review to participate in a session. So if you're in the view mode or an expired trial, you'll still be able to join the session and participate, meaning that you can do markups, you can do measurements, you can do certain things, but you won't be able to create these. So there's a big difference there. So here on the General tab, while we're in the settings, I can go in and change the session name. Here's the session ID. Here's some of the stuff. Now, it says total users. We can see this number is changing in real time over here on the left side. I can change my notifications if I don't want to get stuff about my studio, like when this, it will give me an option to let people know when a project has been updated or a daily digest. So this will tell me, oh, look, David Clark got in here and he did this, right? So some really cool stuff here that can be turned on or turned off accordingly. I'm gonna go ahead and open up a file. We can already see on the left here that the 4 other participants besides myself have already joined and opened up that file. And I can see exactly what's going on. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually, instead of double clicking on this, I wanna see what Brian's doing. I'm gonna go click on, I'm gonna right click on Brian's name, and I'm gonna follow attendee, right? So this is loading up the file that he already has open. And you see that crosshair that's moving right there? That is Brian's crosshair. His cursor is moving around, and I can see that he's adding things to this file. Now, the other 4 people in here as well, you can see that Jason, me, is following Brian Tanner. And you can see that David and Jay Stark and David Cutler are all in here. And if we're looking down here on the left side, I can see what they're doing, right? So David added a text box. Brian added a highlight. And we can see some of this stuff in real time. Go dogs. I don't. What dogs are you talking about? Big Brother is watching. Yes, very true. But what we're seeing in real time is this collaboration, right? We can all do different things to the same file and create our different markups. So as we zoom in, again, I'm still following Brian's cursor here. He's removing tree. He's doing a highlight. Now, in that case, I'm going to go ahead and stop following him. So I'm going to right click. Or, oh, I just turned that off. There we go. Now I'm going to jump back into this file as I'm a part of it. Now you're seeing my cursor again, and I'm moving things around. And I can go see exactly what's going on. So I see Brian's markup here for remove tree. Now, what's really unique about sessions is that I can't do anything with his markup. So I can't change his remove tree. I can't get rid of his highlight. It keeps your name and the things you do tied to your Bluebeam ID. Now, there is a way around that, of course. I can, kick him out. And what happens when I kick him out? Michael?
Once you kick them out, sorry, I was getting ready to Markup Alert for you. Once you get kicked out, depending on what type of markups they have, they will be asked if you would like to transfer that person's markup to someone else. So let's say you did want to remove somebody from the studio session and you are the owner of the studio session, you will be prompted to decide if you wanted to change those markups that that person originally created to someone else. So you can say, hey, Jason, you're going to kick out Brian Taylor. Then you're going to add me as his owner now of all of his markups.
Yep. So I can transfer that, which is really handy. Maybe someone's going to be on vacation for a week and they're not going to be able to get back to this. I can give it to whoever's going to fill in for them, or whatever other scenario that would be applicable to. But it's really nice that you have that sort of control, because as we see here, there's a record going on in the bottom left corner that lets me see exactly what people are doing. And look at that right there. Michael Achave, alert Jason Hartley of a polyline. So for me, when I'm in my thing here, notice there is a chat box. So yes, we are live streaming and we've got a microphone set up and we're on the call. I can communicate with Michael that way, or I can type in with the chat. And you'll see that he alerted me to a polyline. So what's that supposed to do for me?
Go to your notifications.
If I go to notifications, boom, right here. Now, sometimes seems to remember there's a flashing option. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, usually it pops up flashing when
Yeah,
you're in it.
maybe
But
I've
maybe it's
gotta-
because you have that.
Oh, you froze. Yeah, there might be a reason why it's not flashing. Maybe there's a setting. Again,
PDF open.
You were frozen.
It's probably because you have the PDF open. That's why.
Oh, so if I close it,
That's
isn't it like when you first open it up though? When you first open it up, that's when it notifies you. Oh, it is flashing that we got more attendees there. Oh, Brian's offline. See, that's pretty cool. See, I can see when things are there where he's not on anymore. So if I go to my notifications, I have this polyline, and if I click on it, it's taking me right to that spot. So this is really nice for collaborating. Maybe I'm a night owl. Maybe I'm going to hop in my session after the kids have gone to bed, and I'm going to do this stuff. I can still work that way, and then when people are on office time, they can open it and see exactly what's going on. So like our morning coffee review in the Central Time Zone, we can work with our folks in the Pacific Time Zone or whatever else. So many imaginary scenarios that I've come up with here. All right, let's go see what else is going on in our record here. So David put a little chat. There's a whole bunch of good stuff. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for participating. Resize fountain. Resize it to what? Who did that? I can go alert attendees on certain things too. So this is what Michael had just did. He had alerted me, so I wanted to show you that workflow. Or you can set a status, or you can alert an attendee. So now I can choose. Let's alert him. There you go. This is something he's going to be made responsible for. And we're seeing this record here on the bottom left.
And you can still select the markup, see it in the studio markups list. Sorry, not studio markups. It's the markups list to figure out who did what. See the reply if you wanted to as well.
So speaking of markups list, obviously one of the best parts of Bluebeam Review. Here we can see the whole markups list and everything that's being done in here, as well as the author. Now, there are a couple limitations to this, aren't there, Michael? What are the limitations to the markups list inside of a session?
So in a session, there are limitations, and we get this question a lot. You cannot import or export markups from here. So if you wanted to, or you received a new set, you wanted to bring it into the session, and then from that old set that's in the session, update the markups. You can't do that. So you can't import or export markups. You cannot create custom columns from the markups list either. So you can go to the columns here, manage columns. There's no longer the custom column tab. Now, if the column was created outside in the profile or outside in the PDF, you will see the columns that were created as you bring those PDFs in or open that profile.
So in this site plan drawing that I uploaded, this is one that I've messed with before. So there was already some custom content in there, including custom columns. So we see all three of those here, and they're labeled custom column 1, 2, 3. So again, those have to be a part of the PDF prior to it being uploaded.
Exactly. And then the other limitation is you cannot create custom statuses either. So if you go to the status bar, that one, you cannot manage them.
Right. You can still set them. You just can't manage them, correct?
Correct.
I could take David's approved here and I can reject. But I won't because I'm feeling nice today.
And then you cannot also go through and actually add pages. So if you could just do your thumbnails from here, just right click in the thumbnail area. Yeah, so you can't go through here and add pages. You can extract them, but you cannot go through and insert blank pages, rotate pages, or any of those items as well.
Right. This assumes that these are ready and they're completed and they're ready for markup. They're not, a running sort of set. So a question here from David, can you copy all of the markups and then paste them in place to a non-session copy of a file? Let's go take a look. Normally this would be done by going to the markups list and coming down to markups and exporting. And here you'll see that you do not have the ability to export or import markups in a session. Good question, David. So if you did need to take a look at these markups outside of the session, right? This session will expire today in a couple hours. I turned off that ability to save as, and that would have been your way. You would be able to, if I go back in here to permissions, I denied the ability to save as. But if I were to allow that, you would be able to do a save as that would have all of those markups. So it's kind of a backdoor way of answering your question, David. You can't copy and paste exactly, but if you were to save as, then you'd be able to do stuff with it. But again, I can also create, while I'm in here, I can create groups. So if I only want my electrical people to do a certain thing and my architectural people to do a certain thing, I can set permissions by group as well. So maybe I want everybody internal at ATG to have superpowers, which we pretty much already do anyway. Shameless self-promotion there for all of us at ATG, but we can have superpowers and we can set that up for a group, right? So all sorts of good stuff that can be done in here. Now, one of the things I really like about the session, besides our little record here, is our ability to create a report. So this is done by coming down to the report button down at the bottom to the right of the chat. We can click on this and I can do a record summary, a PDF package report, or combine files report. So do you want to describe the differences between these three options here, Michael?
Yeah, so record summary is just a summary of the running record report. So on the left-hand side, you have the running record report, and that's what the running record summary is going to be printing out. And that's just the singular running record. I prefer the PDF package report. So the PDF package report is actually going to give you a package of all the PDFs that were created with all the markups onto them, and also the summary in that package as well that you can go through and click through with items to select, and it'll open up the PDF reference from wherever that was made in the markup. Combined files report, exactly that. It's just going to append all of the PDFs together and staple all of the running record to it as well. So,
yeah, I tend to do the PDF package report myself. So that's, again, have everything together. So what this will do, and I can filter it, I can do other, portrait, landscape.
So
portrait.
And filter's new, by the way. So see how there's a funnel next to the report button on the bottom left where the chat is?
Mm-hmm.
So there is the ability to filter out things like chat, not singularly, but all over together there is. When you do finish out a session though, you can single out people's markups if you're the owner when you hit finish. That means closing it out and ending the studio session. Everyone gets kicked out and you end it yourself. You can say, hey, I don't want to see Jason Hartley's markups. You can have that option too. So,
So as we were mentioning, if there was someone whose comments weren't a part of what we wanted to talk about or whatever, we can filter them out. That is one way to, as we talked earlier, I can't change anybody else's markups, right? Unless I kick them out. So if I filter them, I can remove them that way. So what I'll do now is I'll hit OK, and we'll see the results of this. It will ask me to save. So I'll save this, and it's going to open up the package. So here's my documents. Here are all of the files, in this case, just the one. And then I have my report. So if I open up that report, double click on it, there we go. Now this can be set up a little nicer, as far as your formatting, but this shows everything that we want to see, right? Who's doing what, who did what, at what time they did what page they were on. This is great, right? This allows us that sort of running record. We don't have to take meeting minutes. We don't have to do all that. And then we can always go back and say, so Ed, you added a Cloud Plus. What's up with that? Now, take a look at my cursor too. As I move my cursor around, these are also hyperlinked, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty cool. Iced tea machine. Ooh, that sounds good. I'm having iced tea today.
There was a question, can you add a toolbox in a session? So my question would be, is that a tool set that you were asking? Because you can. It still is the availability of going into a custom tool set.
Mhm. So that's a good question. So we do, if I were to create a tool chest, this only affects, what I see in my Bluebeam review, right? So I can go grab some of these things and I can, make markups. I can do my custom stuff. If I wanted to actually distribute a tool set, that can be done through a session as well, because I can attach it to my file, right? So if I were to go and I don't really want to do that because I don't want to mess up anybody's review, because that won't change after we close our session, right? But I can attach that file since I have full access to review. Since I'm being in a session here, I can go to Markup and I can add that file, or that file attachment. There we go. And I can attach my BTX file, which would be a tool set that I could just have it there as a thumbnail. And then when you double click it, it's going to automatically load onto your profile.
Yep.
So we can distribute things that way.
Let me ask a question too, Jason. We may have some users that are using an older version of Review. Do you want to explain a little bit of that, or would you like me to?
I would like you to.
Okay.
I always forget that there's older versions of Review and people haven't upgraded to the latest and greatest.
Yes, so just be aware if you are looking at your user interface and it looks completely different from what Jason has open. His is a darker interface and some of his icons look completely different than yours. You are in a version that is 17 and below. Those are, I guess you would call it a legacy version. You cannot buy legacy versions either. You cannot say, hey, we're in 2020 right now, I believe, right? Yeah, 2020. So you cannot buy a legacy if right now you want to just go out and buy an older version. You can only buy the newest version, but if you did buy an older version, you can still download that old legacy one if you wanted to. So just be aware that we are always showing our version from 2020 in the latest and greatest in here. If you do have questions about more of legacy items, feel free to ask in the chat and we can kind of talk about it, because I do know where some things are as well. So,
which brings me to a nice little side notion here. So this session thing, I'm in 2020. I started in Bluebeam 20, and other folks might be joining on a different version. This is also accessible from the iPad version. So you can join and participate in a session on the iPad. So if you're out in the field and you need to jump in and make comments as you're doing like your punch list items, it's a great way to do that, to relay back to the office in real time.
we could do that now. I'll get in on my iPad. And then also be aware that if you are in a legacy version, you can still join the session.
Right.
Yeah.
So Michael's getting his iPad fired up. He's going to join, and we'll be able to see him pop in over here accordingly. So I always talk about this, I just mentioned the punch list thing, but absolutely for inspections, what better way to transmit that data back to the office than by using a session? Because you can upload your photos, you can upload your comments, you can take those measurements out in the field and relay them without having to get on the phone and try to explain things. So that's very, very powerful. All right, so looks like Joe Demo here.
That's me.
There he is. So he's joining on his iPad. So still do whatever you want. He's in this file. Of course, we can see all that stuff. Very cool. All right, so what else did we want to talk about for sessions? I feel like it's a pretty wide open subject, right? Because depending on what we're going to be doing in review, we can do that in a session. Whether we're looking at documents or site plans or architectural plans or whatever, the PDF content part doesn't really matter. But It actually does, right? This will only work with PDF files. So another little differentiator between studio sessions
So-
and studio projects, right? You're going to say something.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you want to go back to the session one, and then we can show how like you can take a picture, the session PDF. Yep.
All right.
So over here on the right, I just made a revision cloud. So let's say you're out in the field. It's top right, right up here.
Let's go find it down here.
Yes.
Joe Demo did that. See, and I clicked on it, it took me right there. Okay. So whenever you see this icon, and sometimes it'll be this little lens, and sometimes it will be a lightning bolt, or I think there's a couple other ones, right? We can click on it and look at that. So I see the picture. This is exactly what we were just talking about. Joe Demo is out in the field with his iPad and go take a picture of this issue and let it be known. Right. So it works really, really well. Now, here's a question here from David. How responsive is the system if there are multiple users working on various pages of the file at the same time? Would it work if you have multiple estimators working on the same package of drawings? Yes, it will work. How responsive would it be? Well, that's kind of up to your internet connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's up to your bandwidth.
Yeah. Does it view 360 photos? I believe it
have,
does.
Yeah, let me see if I have any.
I don't think I have any. I've seen them work, or I've seen 360 photos in Bluebeam, so I would imagine they would work. Now, wasn't there another limitation with 3D PDFs? Or did 3D PDFs work?
3D PDFs work.
Well, let's find out. Let's put one up here. So for those of you who haven't messed with a 3D PDF before, I'll put one up here so you can take a look at it. Now, the markup functionality is not the same in a 3D PDF, and if you want to see more about 3D PDF stuff, go visit our YouTube channel at ATG USA and go back a couple weeks. We did do a session all about 3D PDFs, didn't we?
Yes. And 1 second here. My computer's gonna die.
Uh-oh.
Yep. Let me connect it.
All right. So as he's reconnecting and getting his stuff figured out, now again, I can go see exactly what's going on over here in my attendee list. I see that David Cutler has opened up that 3D PDF that I've uploaded. So it's pretty cool. And then you can also see that I added that file. Okay, another question. Can you open up other PDFs at the same time that are not in the session? Absolutely. As you see here, I have other files. Actually, thanks for asking that question, David. You see this icon right here? That shows you that this is a session drawing versus this other one. So a little bit ago, I was in this document, my site plan, right? I'm going to close my other tabs here. Oh, that didn't work since I closed my package. Never mind. I can open up the same file and have it work. Let's assume these are the same file names. They just don't have that icon, right? So you can work on other things. No problem at all. That's why a few minutes ago, you may have seen me move a markup. And that was because I was in the live drawing, not the studio drawing, right? So once I did that package, once I had that package created, remember I used that option down here, it did give me another copy of this file, which does give me all of the markups live, right? So that is another way that I can extract all of the markups from my session and add them to something else.
I'm gonna Markup Alert you, Jason, so you can check out this.
I don't see anything yet.
I don't have. Did you limit Markup Alert? Let me alert you.
It won't let you
Says,
from an iPad?
I'm on the computer.
Okay.
Might have limited me. But can you go and see where I added? Just click on the check, yeah.
Where is it? I clicked on it, but I don't. see it anywhere.
So
Weird.
maybe reconnect.
So you'll notice that attendee is flashing too. That's letting me know that someone new has have come in or left.
Okay, now it's working. Let me add this from file here.
And of course, as with every week, this topic that we're talking about, studio sessions, is just our topic. So if you have any other questions related to Bluebeam that don't involve studio sessions, feel free to type them into the Q&A box, and we'll answer them as we go. We've got about 25 minutes left of our session today.
So it should be good.
All right, here we go. So I see this alert right here. Well, I see that Michael has alerted Jason Artley. If I go to notifications, there's my list. So let's say that I've been participating in a session with other subcontractors or other coworkers or whatever. When I join that session for the day, I'm going to hop over notifications first thing and see what I need to see. Right. So here's that rectangle. I can click on it. It takes me right there. Pretty cool.
No, check out the capture.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, so 3D. Look at that. So yeah, there we go. That answers that question. Thanks for that, Chris. Thanks, Michael, for having a 360 photo on deck.
You're welcome, sir.
Very cool. All right, close that. Now I see that there's also bonus tip. This reply thing is new. It only came out in 20. Was it an update? A 20? What do you call them?
I think it was a feature
release?
update. Yeah.
Feature update. That will take me right here to my markups list, and I can see that response that it was marked in here. All right. Very cool. What else do you want to talk about, Michael?
All right, so we can then move over to studio projects, you think?
Sure.
Okay.
All
want
right.
me to do that?
Yeah, I'll stop my share and you can do yours. And while you're doing that, I'll answer Chris's question. Can you snapshot from something outside of a session and paste it in a session? Yes, you can. Because a snapshot is just a snapshot.
Correct. Which would be Control V to paste or right click and paste if you wanted to do that as well.
Correct.
Alrighty, so we'll start talking about studio projects. This is for unlimited storage. So if you wanted to store any type of file, you have that ability with studio projects. Again, it's a highly underutilized item that I always like mentioning because it's great. It's free storage and it's unlimited. So I'm gonna go to my file share down here. Or should we make one? What do you think, Jason?
Make one.
Okay.
And you don't this time add restrictions.
Okay.
So we'll go through that.
We'll do 713 as well. And then we'll do 21 at the end. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new session, which is would use the same nomenclature over here. So I'm not going to do that. So we'll hit OK. So I added 21 on the end of mine. So it's been created. Now, unlike the studio sessions, you don't automatically get prompted to set permissions. So in here, you have to go through to the sidebars. And then from the sidebar, because I don't need to even have studio sessions in terms of the panel open anymore, I can close that because this is the project tab. So I can work directly from here. So then I can open this up. I can see the project ID. I can then go to my user access, and this is where I can restrict attendees if I wanted to. It is restricted right now, so no one's able to join. I will lift that, and then in a second, you'll be able to add in by ID, or if you all want to jump ahead and add in by ID, it's right up here in the top left. This is my dynamic options bar, I like to call it, where you're going to get dynamic stuff for whatever command you're in, which currently the project. So there's the ID. Now here's the permissions. Everything is denied for all attendees. Or I could go in and add by groups. Here are some groups that I have, like my demo, my directors, or my subs. And within those groups, you have the attendees that you want to add to them. So this is a great way to just multi-add and invite people and limit access by specific groups, right? So I'm going to add this specific subgroup right here. And that would be allowing us to specifically give user access to them also. So then I can say, hey, the subs only have access to do something in here, right? So they only have access to send. And now this is specific to the project, not specific to the items within the folders themselves. There's a whole subtab for that. But from here, I can say, hey, they can send invitations to this project, or hey, they can manage user access. Usually I don't have anything in here, maybe file share. Maybe you want your attendees to be able to share files. You could do that as well. But right now, everyone's going to have that user access denied. So they cannot send invitations. They cannot manage permissions. They cannot send PDFs to a session. But then you have folder permissions. So what can people do within folders, right? So when I start adding folders into here, what are they allowed to get access to? Essentially, be the reason for the folders here. Now, the project group, but let me go in and add some folders real quick. You can do this one of two ways. Or is there anything else you want me to touch on in here, Jason, in terms of user access, permissions, folder permissions?
No, I think you went over that just fine.
We'll do this again, but I need some folders to kind of make you or help you understand it.
Right.
From here, I can go and say, hey, here's a new folder. Now this is in the hierarchy. So if you think of File Explorer, you have your first folder, and then you have subfolder, and then maybe another subfolder, right? You have to click on the actual ID if you want to have a folder right underneath just the main project. So from here, I can go in and say project files. Then maybe I'll create another one. I'm not going to click into this one because then it's going to add a subfolder under project files. I'm going to stay up here, and then I'm going to add a new folder, and I'm going to say maybe images. We'll just do image. And then we can go through and add whatever we need to from here. I'm going to do project subfolders here, and I'm actually just going to go through and add some from here. Well, actually, I'm going to add some from this images here. Let me go to. So I'm in File Explorer on my second screen, and we'll actually just add it from project files. And all I have to do is grab something. This is a preferred method, and just say, hey, drag and drop. And it's going to add that complete folder in here with all of the files that are in that specific one. There was a question here in the chat.
Yeah, so one question from David here. What are the advantages of a studio project versus just saving to a shared drive or file sharing site? So instead of using Dropbox or Google Drive or whatever, why would you use a session? Well, or a studio project. One good one is that this is free, right? Dropbox and stuff, you got to pay and download. And sometimes if you're already using Review, you have access to this.
Yep. And for PDFs, you have the ability to mark up and also have someone check it out and work on it as well. And we'll talk about that in a second. Because I am going to be adding a PDF here specific to it, so that we can show project files. I'm not going to open up those 3D PDFs. Maybe I want to add a subfolder within here. We're just going to add 2D folder here, boom. And it's going to add a subfolder underneath this specific project. And then from here, I'm just going to go and add a PDF set like we already had before. And I'm just going to drag and drop. So once this has been uploaded, there are some items. And again, I think I lifted restrictions. So I only have one user in here. Oh, I didn't lift it, hit apply. Okay. So from here, you have the ability to actually check out the files to work on them. That's specific to the .pdf file types because we're working into Review. If you open up like a Word document, like I have or an Excel, sorry, it's going to open up its native use here. So as you see here, it's opening up the native application for whatever it's being used with. Now this is in read-only mode because I didn't check it out. So how Review Studio Projects works for file locking, it works in the check-in, check-out basis. except for PDFs. PDFs can be multi-opened. They can only be singularly checked out though. So let's say if Jason wanted to open up this plan set here, he could open it up, but I could then have it checked out, or we'll actually have Jason check it out, or whoever joins can check it out and work on it. And then I will also see that specific person that has it checked out as well. So you can check in, check out like a book and work on those specific PDFs in review. You can check in, check out all other documents. That's how it file locks for like a Revit file or a Excel file or a Word document. Now, what's another reason why you don't have to pay for storage here? It's unlimited. You paid for the software and you get studio projects for free. So why not use the free storage that it has? I can also share as well these documents. So like this PDF, I can share a static, not a dynamic file share. So you just right click, you can say share link here. And then you can say, hey, I'm going to share for the lifetime of the project. So once the project closed, then the link breaks. Or I'm going to require a password. Do I want to flatten any of those markups and specific to the PDF file type? I'm going to hit OK. It's just going to be a link right here. And then you can send that. So I'm going to go to here. Well, actually, I could just go here, window tab, hit paste. Oops.
Oh, yeah.
Paste.
There you go.
And there's my link.
So it works really nice that way. Sharing with Dropbox works, all right too, and same with Google Drive. But again, you're already in review. You're going to be looking at these files in review. Might as well keep it all in the same ecosystem, and it works really, really well.
Yeah, and this ties into your latest and greatest, right? So not just that, you're receiving the most updated set within the project. That can then be also tied to drawings, right? So let's say you had somebody out in the field that just views PDFs. They don't mark up anything. If you have active maintenance, you become an uploader to drawing sets, then you can upload drawings to the specific project that you want to create from a project that's already active, or you create a new project. And then somebody out in the field that has a phone or an iPad, it can be an Android phone as well. You can go through and download the app called Drawings from Bluebeam. That gets you access to the most updated set. As you being the uploader, you're uploading the most updated set to those field users as well. All righty.
Did you check it out? While you were talking, I did check it out.
Okay.
And by checking it out, I right-clicked on it and said check out. So this means that when he tries to go into 2D, that second floor reference plan, it shouldn't allow you the ability to check out. Revoke checkout. Now, talk about that. Since you're the admin, you have special rights.
Yes, I do. So for me, I have the ability to revoke checkout. This is great if somebody goes on vacation and they have it checked out and you're trying to mark it up. You revoke their checkout. Just be aware when you revoke their checkout, it doesn't save any of their markups that they had, because it's just saying, hey, they checked it out, and from whatever point they checked it out at, they're going to be receiving it back. So then from here, I can see, hey, who checked it out as well. So as I hover over here on this left side of the document, I can see that Jason Artley, his email right here is the one that checked it out. So I could send them a friendly reminder, hey, you have, I don't know, an hour to check it back in, or I'm going to revoke your checkout and all the markups that you had were lost. You can also check revision history. So if he made any markups, I could see the latest markups that he made it as well.
I can tell you that I did that.
Okay.
You can already see that.
Yeah. And I can already see this, and I can go back and actually open from the latest versions as well. So if there's an older one that I wanted to revert back to, or a newer one, because I accidentally reverted it back to something, you can go back and forth through your revisions as they were checked in. Hopefully you have some good practices like adding comments so you know. And
now,
then
while you're on there, if you were to go back to your restore revision, right? So if you were to restore version 1, what's going to happen to version 2?
Well, if it's checked out, I can't yet, but if you check it in, right, and it's here, it's going to revert back to that one and save that as the hierarchy of it.
Right. So any revision restoration becomes version number 3. So you're never fully,
Correct.
Getting rid of things. So it works really well.
Yep. And then from here, you can also create a studio session. So if you wanted to, when he is unchecked it out, which I can't do now, but if I go over here and right click and say add to a new session, you have the ability to create a session specific to the project and add PDFs directly to it. So this is one way to add PDFs to a session. You collaborate live, because you can't live collaboration in a project because it's check in, check out. But if you want multi-users to work on it at the same time in the session, you can actually create a session from the project, which is storing your PDFs. So you don't have to download them, because in studio projects and in studio sessions, they are both a static copy of whenever you added it to the either project or session. But from here, they can actually collaborate between each other. So if you added it to the project first, then you said from there, go to the session, it'll be a live copy once you end the session and bring it over to here. There's a question.
David's having some issue there with his session getting hung up. Connection's good and he can hear Zoom fine, but the session got hung up. Interesting. We could, that is on Bluebeam's cloud server. I haven't noticed any other slowdown with it, but I'm also not in there.
Yes.
There we
are any questions pertaining to any of that stuff? I tried to open the file and it hasn't opened.
Yeah, it's working fine for me.
So creating the session is great. Again, through and through to each one. So if you want to update it, and in order to get your sessions or your PDFs checked back in, you can just close the session and end the session, and it'll bring your PDFs back over to here. And you will see them as a revision history if you wanted to as well.
Mm-hmm. And as Michael mentioned, this is where it doesn't have to be a PDF file, right? Your CAD drawings, your Excel spreadsheets, you can load it all up in here. It works. You can see he's got a spreadsheet right there. If you were to double click on that though, it's going to open up Excel. So the same checkout function still works.
And as you can see, I didn't check it out, so it's making me read only in the software. So whatever native file locking it had within the software, and here it makes you check it out. And then if you are working on a separate file, just be aware, or separate application, you cannot close review out because it needs to point to where it's saving the data. So do not close review if you're working like in a Revit file. If you're opening up a Revit file to work on it because you're storing it in projects, you have to make sure that this is open, or it's going to cache it locally and save it locally. I did that before, so just be aware.
That is very true. Well, we've got about a little less than 10 minutes left. If you have any other questions, feel free to type them into the Q&A panel. We'll check over with DJ CJ and see if there's any questions coming in from the YouTube live stream. Otherwise, we'll use this as a point of promotion. Tomorrow, we are going to be doing a special edition of Morning Coffee Review for our West Coast friends. So it'll be at 8:30 Pacific time. So tune into that. It will be a different topic than we did today. It's all about keeping people's alarm clocks from going off too early. But we are thankful for you West Coasters that join us every week at 6:30 in the morning. That's crazy.
It is early. So from here, you do have the ability to go through and change the folder permissions. So let's say the images folder here, I wanted to say, hey, it's hidden. So all users, this is all attendees, but if I had groups, it'd be specific to the groups. They can't see it. Or, hey, they can only read the specific files that are in there. Or they can only read and write. Or they can read, write, and delete. This is the same thing from here saying inherit from parent, meaning, okay, the parent is a project root, so it's only going to be able to read. So every single file they can only read in. Or I can change that. Hey, they can read, write. Or they can read, write, and delete.
So that's where you might give your subs their own folder, right? So they're uploading their mechanical drawings or whatever, and they have control of what they are including with the project.
Yes. And Chris, yes, you do have to send a new link. It is a static link. It is not a dynamic link. So it's from that static point of wherever it was.
Great question. So just to add a little bit more clarity, Chris asked, if you update the file, do you have to resend the link? So where it is, like Michael said, that point in time is what they're going to see. So good question. All right. What else did we want to talk about? We talked about studio sessions. We just talked about studio projects. Maybe with our last 5 minutes, we can go outside of Bluebeam and take a look at this inside of Studio Prime.
Okay. Yeah, that's great.
Just a teaser.
Okay. So Studio Prime is a separate subscription. Studio. It is studio.bluebeam.com. Now, for those people that are just trying to log in to maybe check their sessions that they've created, no, thank you. You have the ability to still go into this studio.bluebeam.com because it'll allow you to bring back some of your sessions that you've closed out. Doesn't let you modify projects, but it does let you modify sessions. So you can go back in if a session expired or something like that, you can reactivate it. Now, if you want this user interface and integrations like Procore, something like that, you have to pay for the subscription of Studio Prime. Now, what Studio Prime does, it gives you a little bit of analytics of things that are happening in your projects and in your sessions. You do have to add users to this in order to get that information. Just like today, I can see recently created, because I know Jason's already a user added into here. What was created, like the project. What was also created was this session as you go through here. I also had a dashboard webinar that I created from creating digital dashboards last week. I can then go into maybe specific projects, and then I can go through and select, okay, what projects do I want to grab some data file from? So I can scroll down and look through a bunch of these if I wanted to, like a file share. What activity am I looking for? Maybe activity or shared links or just statistics specifically of it. I can just say go, and I can go and look at the information that's going to be providing for me the number of documents, what are the number of users that have been added to the file share, what's the project ID. I can then go back and say, hey, home, I want to go through and create or look at my projects here. I can then even transfer owners from here if I wanted to as well, and say, hey, this guy isn't the owner anymore. I'm going to transfer it to Jason maybe, or maybe I want to get some more insights. Maybe I want to delete the project itself as well. So I could go through and actually delete the project because we don't need it anymore after today. So I'm going to hit confirm. And everyone's going to get a message that it was deleted.
Well, and that's really good for like user turnover, right? So if you're an IT manager or a project manager who's using this, let's say someone leaves the company, you can go in and take all of their projects and sessions, give them to somebody else to, pick up the ball and run from there. So,
Yep.
Great way if you're dealing with a lot of users, the Prime, I think it's worth the extra subscription.
Yep. And you also get automizations. So if you want to automate any type of folder structure, which we've done before, we showed this. I don't remember which one it was, but you can go into, yeah. So you can go into here and you can create an already automated workflow of what it's going to be uploading in terms of your file types and inputs. So you have that ability to go into here and actually process that as well. So there are some great advantages for this as you go through it.
Indeed. Well, that brings us just about to the end of our session today.
It does.
So I'm looking at your clock. Your clock's a minute off of mine. Well, 2 hours and a minute, I should say.
Well, we can end it here then. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Please fill out a review when you leave. There will be a little comments and information about what you participated with. So please fill those out. It helps us out. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know about future topics. What do you want to hear? But thanks everyone for joining us today on this third part of Back to Basics. And we look forward to seeing you either tomorrow or the following Tuesday as well for our next session.
Sounds good. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Or next Tuesday.
Or next Tuesday.